What do you do? It's a harmless enough question, and it's one that we face all the time. I hate it. I hate it largely because I have no idea what I'm doing. But what indeed are any of us doing? The theme today is momentum, and I'd like to start off by acknowledging that momentum sounds like a great thing, but it isn't inherently so. It is, after all, possible to achieve a great momentum as you sprint face first into a brick wall. So, what are we using our collective momentum in aid of? Well, one momentous thing is that we're working more than ever. And we're also working harder than ever. We're 60% more productive than we were just 3 decades ago. So we've amassed a great amount of wealth, which is a great benefit, but there's an equivalent cost. And what I want today is for all of us to reflect upon whether we think that that benefit is indeed worthy of the cost. And I don't come to this by being some high altruist reflecting on the glory of our species. I come to it because I'm around during the day and I am bored. Dead bored. There's no one around. I could walk my dog within the shadow of this nation's parliament without encountering a single soul. Typically, the only people you find out in the day are women with babies. Where are all the men? Is there a war on? Critically, why wasn't I invited? Even then, the women you do find are typically clad in activewear, jogging the pram, maybe got a podcast in the ear, and it looks very much to me like everyone's trying to eke every inch of value out of every minute of their precious maternity leave. Why should this be the case? Well, it could be that we're working harder than ever because we love our jobs more than ever. I'm not convinced that that is the truth. And I think one clue is in the language that we use. We talk about, I hate Monday. We start our week with it, ashen-faced, I hate Monday. Then we grip our way, white knuckle, over hump day. On our way, hallelujah, thank God, it's Friday. Thank God. But we invented the days of the week. If they're not serving us, surely we can reinvent them. They're not a law of nature, after all. And why? Why should this be the case? Well, we also talk about taking a mental health day. It's a familiar one. You say you want to take a mental health day, your friend will often look upon you sympathetically. Yes, it's so important. You must take care of your mental health. As though we tacitly understand, even worse, accept that good mental health is somehow fundamentally incompatible with our daily lives. We talk about a getaway. Oh, I love nothing more than just to be able to jump on a plane, roll out on a beach, and just get away from it all. It all being what exactly? Our entire lives? The aggregate of every decision we've ever made, everything we've built, that's what we want to get away from? Madness. The unions of old fought for 8-8-8. 8 hours of work, 8 hours of leisure, and 8 hours of rest. But it seems to me to be a bit of an unfair trade, because not all hours are created equal. We spend the best 8 hours at work, then the 16 that remain to us here are largely spent in a frozen hellscape. It's all very reminiscent of Beyond the Wall in that show that everybody's watching. Except we're not out there beyond the wall, because we get home, we're so tired, we pour ourselves into a glass of wine because we need to relax. Why? Because we've been drinking coffee all day. And of course, it's in complete idleness that we've been doing this. So we then go to the gym, burn out something, and by the time we get home, we've only got a couple hours to just bliss out and watch that show that everybody's been watching. And I think it's telling that the dominant art of our time, Game of Thrones, is one that feeds us on a diet of hyper-stylized sex, violence, and human conflict. Things that are tellingly absent from our daily lives. And I think that we're consuming more of our identities because we have less and less time. Which brings to mind another term, retail therapy. We're working harder and harder, trying to toil endlessly with a fearful eye on an insatiable future. And it may feel like it's always been thus, but it actually hasn't. It's relatively recent for our species, this phenomenon. And more thinkers identify one turning point as responsible, which is incredibly one of our greatest achievements, settled agriculture. Because once we settled down and we could accumulate wealth on the spot, well, there was always something more to do, always more work to do, always some soldiers to send out and accrue more wealth to defend ours, something to do, constantly busy. In fact, Jared Diamond describes settled agriculture as a catastrophe from which our species has never recovered. Strong words from a very clever man. How might this catastrophe cast a shadow into our own life? Well, for mine, I believe that it's in this artificial time deficit that we all experience. Many of us here will be familiar with Jevons paradox. Jevons paradox posits that the more efficiently we're able to use a resource, the quicker we are to deplete it. So if you think of something like petrol, our cars are maybe twice as efficient as a generation ago, but it doesn't mean we use half as much petrol. We're using more oil than ever. I think that this intellectual toolkit can be applied to time in our lives. We've never been more able to access information, contact friends, be productive, and yet we seem to feel shorter and shorter on time. And it's not just in phenomena such as our increasing work hours. It's also present in things like our reduction in volunteering rates, which are down significantly, even just from 5 years ago. We are a status-motivated, hierarchical species. And I believe that the answer to that question, what do you do, the noun that we give in response, is so powerful that it can guide our entire lives in directions in which we may otherwise not wish to have gone. Take, for example, someone who identifies as a creative. Now, they may not relish drawing up steel production reports for a company all day, but as long as they can go home with wooden-trimmed glasses, an outfit from Gorman, and the title of graphic designer, suddenly it's a much easier cross to bear. Similarly, if you reflect on someone who spent years studying ecology, well, they may be outright conflicted when it's their job to produce the report that greenlights the bulldozer, that clears yet another swamp, and pushes yet another set of species closer to extinction. But this dissonance is far easier to pave if they've got a card in their pocket that says environmental consultant. It's in the name. It must be environmental. This phenomenon is never more telling for me than when we look at our school leavers. The decision kids make when they're leaving schools, very indicative. Theoretically, if you're the top achieving student, you get the best grades, you should be able to choose from the entire pantheon of human activity. Whatever you desire should be able to be yours. How sadly telling it is that our top school leaders instead choose from a very narrow bandwidth of the courses for which their grade qualifies them. Not being one who wants to waste their score, you can see that there'll be those in your own lives, if not yourself, who has pursued a perhaps prestigious discipline such as law without any primary interest in it. And this decision that we make as an under-stress, ill-informed 17-year-old can inform our whole lives because of our inability to navigate our natural cognitive resistance to sunk costs. You can see how, well, I got the grade, I should do the course. Well, I got the course, I should do the job. Oh, well, I've been here for 10 years, I worked very hard to be where I am. I should continue doing this and do the best that I can. Perhaps never taking a gateway to reflect that you may have been happier the whole time just learning to plant a garden or sail ships. And of course, the inverse is true, depending on your social expectations. And isn't that ultimately what all this toil is for? The pursuit of some nebulous concept of happiness? Well, increasingly, the more we understand about happiness, the less it seems to resemble how we've structured our modern work lives. Is it any wonder, then, that we are wading through a mental health crisis? Many things that are innate to our everyday species experience until recent history are removed from us. For example, exercising through nature, hanging out with friends, spending all day in your closest moments with your dear family, pursuing exciting sexual encounters, mastering a skill. These things are increasingly divorced from, if not explicitly forbidden, from our daily working lives. I'm not saying that the work that we do is useless. Obviously, a huge amount of it is. Obviously, a huge amount of it is incredibly vital. I'm just asking us to reflect upon whether we think the role of work in our society and how we're doing it is designed to benefit us, or if the benefits that we do get are commensurate with the costs that we're paying. And perhaps you can conduct a little experiment in your own life, maybe go down to a 3-day week, 6-hour day, come hang out with me in the sun, and buy tickets to all my shows at night. Thank you.